Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
For many people, strict diets may help shed some pounds, but are most often not sustainable long-term. The majority of those who do lose weight gain the pounds back after a year or so, if not sooner. That's because once they've reached their goal weight, if they ever do, most people go back to the same old eating habits that made them unhealthy in the first place. The fact of the matter is that losing weight and keeping it off is really hard to do. So when a magic pill like Ozempic and other GLP-1 weight loss drugs come along, it seems like a dieter's dream come true. But is it?
We now have a new kind of weight loss drug that works in a completely new way. That is an incredible transformation. The average person who uses Ozempic loses 15% of their body weight in a year. The average person who loses Mounjaro, which is the next in the same class of drugs, loses 21% of their body weight. And in the next ones that will be available next year, Triple G, the average person loses 24% of their body weight. Staggering. I used to massively overeat. Now I inject myself once a week in the leg. I don't overeat. It feels like magic.
That's Johann Hari, author of Magic Pill, The Extraordinary Benefits and Disturbing Risks of the New Weight Loss Drugs.
The way these drugs work is if you ate something now, doesn't matter what it is, your pancreas would produce a hormone called GLP-1. And GLP-1 is basically part of your body's natural system going, hey, you had enough, stop eating, right? It's the brakes. But natural GLP-1 only sticks around in your system for a few minutes and then it's washed away. What these drugs do is they inject you with an artificial copy of GLP-1 that instead of sticking around for a few minutes, sticks around for a whole week, which is why these drugs produce this incredible amount of weight loss.
When Hari first learned about these drugs, he thought two things. First, that they could save his life. Obesity ran in his family and 2 close male relatives had died of heart attacks.
I'm embarrassed to say the thing that most shocked me in the research for the book was how unbelievably bad for you obesity is on average. It makes basically everything we fear significantly more likely. Dementia, heart disease, cancer, it's one of the biggest causes of cancer, stroke, terrible crippling back pain, crippling knee pain, crippling hip pain, just across the board. It's really bad for your physical and mental health.
The second thing Hari thought was that these new GLP-1 drugs were too good to be true. One previous weight loss drug, commonly known as fen-phen, caused significant cardiac problems, including cardiac arrest, and was pulled from the market in 1997. However, that product was never FDA approved, and according to the Mayo Clinic, these new GLP-1 drugs are generally considered to be safe.
What most experts will say, and it's an important point, is actually we know quite a lot about the safety of these drugs because type 2 diabetics have been taking them for 18 years. And I'm putting it a bit more crudely than they would, but if the drugs made you grow horns, the diabetics would have horns by now, right?
Yet these drugs do present potential risks for pancreatitis, thyroid cancer, and other conditions. But the greatest concern researchers have, and the one that worried Hari the most, is that no one knows the long-term effects of taking these drugs for decades.
Most scientists, although again this is disputed, believe that if you stop taking these drugs, you regain the weight, right? So it's like blood pressure medication or statins. They work while you take them and then they stop working when you stop. So you're talking about taking these drugs for decades, right? You know, I'm 45. I hope I live to be 90. So that's 45 years I'll be taking it. We don't know the long-term effects of that.
But after careful consideration of the risks and benefits, Hari decided to start weekly injections of Ozempic. He lost 42 pounds in 1 year. He's still on the drug.
It's the weirdest feeling. I'll never forget. The second day after I started taking it, I woke up, I was lying in bed, and I thought, I feel something weird. What is it? And I couldn't figure out in my body what it was. And then I realized I had woken up and I wasn't hungry. That had never happened to me before. I used to always wake up with this incredible hunger. And I went to this diner just up the street from where I live, and I ordered what I used to order every morning, I'm slightly embarrassed to say, which is a huge chicken sandwich with loads of chicken and mayo in it. And I used to eat that every morning and still be hungry. I would like have some potato chips as well sometimes. And I had 3, maybe 4 mouthfuls of the sandwich, and I was just full. I just didn't want to eat anymore.
One of the reasons diets don't work for most people is because they require a considerable amount of willpower to be successful. The 60,000 members of Overeaters Anonymous worldwide will tell you that willpower doesn't work for them either.
I've tried, the homegrown, like they had the cabbage soup diet. And I remember I made all this soup and it was supposed to last like a week. I ate it in a day and a half because I love vegetables. So, it doesn't even matter if it's junk food. I can overeat anything. We always hear willpower, and it's like, yeah, we all have willpower up to a certain point until it doesn't work for certain areas in our life. And willpower didn't work for me anymore because my disease grew in strength. So when I was 30, yes, I could manage things differently. 20, 30 years later, I can't do that.
That's Meg, a member of OA. She originally joined the group because she couldn't stop eating sugary, highly processed foods and weighed well over 240 pounds.
You either have a healthy diet or an unhealthy diet. But I think it's been so socialized, at least in the United States, that it's like, well, it's a temporary thing. So I'm going to eat healthy so I can get to the desired weight. And then once I do that, all bets are off. I can go back to the way I was eating. For me, is that if I stay away from my, you'd say alcoholic foods or binge foods and eat healthy, which things for me are, protein and fruit and vegetables and all of that. And I eat that way every day because I want to and because it works, then I will keep the weight off. But if I go back to the way I was eating and think that I can just eat a piece of something or a part of something, I will still go back to eating that way because I did that between 1990 and 2004, and I gained well over 100 pounds.
OA is not a diet club. It's a 12-step program modeled after Alcoholics Anonymous. Members follow a food plan that's individualized for each person and rely on what they call a higher power, as well as meetings and talking with a sponsor.
I have lost and maintained 120-pound weight loss. So right now I'm 5'6" and I weigh 140 pounds. And I've kept that weight off. It took a bit, at the beginning to lose that, but I would say I've been at this weight for, 14 years.
Before OA, Meg was an emotional eater and often used candy bars as comfort. She says since joining, she hasn't eaten a candy bar in 20 years.
So it's basically learning to live your life with its ups and downs without turning to food to manage that. So being super upset or super bored. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to just sit and binge. And now it's like, well, if I'm super upset, I don't get to just rip open, a bag of chips or something. It's kind of like, how am I going to learn to manage that without going to food?
Food was Hari's go-to comfort as well. Once he started taking Ozempic, binge eating didn't comfort him anymore. He says that it came both as a surprise and a disappointment at first.
When I was very young, I would soothe myself by deliberately overeating, by stuffing myself. It was a way of numbing myself, calming myself down. And I couldn't do that. I can't do that when I'm taking Ozempic. So those feelings came to the surface in a way that made me feel worse for a while. Now, that can be a good thing because, there are better ways to deal with feeling bad than Colonel Sanders, right? So if you can bring that to the surface and then deal with it in a better way, that's healthy. But that was a pretty bumpy transition for me there, and I think it is for a lot of people. One of the most common issues that people complain about when they take these drugs is that they lose their pleasure in food. In fact, Jens Jules Holst, who's one of the scientists who developed these drugs, said in an interview with Wired magazine that he thinks this is just going to be a really big problem because people lose their pleasure in food and you just can't live like that.
However, that concern hasn't stopped these drugs from rising in popularity. With the internet and telehealth, access to medicine has never been easier, which has Hari worried that they'll be abused by people struggling with eating disorders.
I guarantee you could go on Zoom this afternoon and find a doctor you'd get the drugs biked to you the next day, right? Doctors are meant to see you and assess that you have a BMI higher than 27 or not give you these drugs. Dr. Kimberly Dennis, who's the leading expert on eating disorders in the United States, one of them, said to me, these drugs are rocket fuel for people with eating disorders. You can starve yourself with these drugs in a way you never could without them. So we need to urgently change the rules so that you can only get these drugs if you see a doctor in person, and that doctor should be trained in detecting eating disorders. If we don't do that, I worry that alongside the extraordinary benefits to these drugs, and they are extraordinary for people like me, we will have an opioid-like wave of deaths of young girls who kill themselves with these drugs.
In his book, Hari tries to help people weigh the options by outlining the benefits and the risks of taking GLP-1 drugs.
There's so many advantages to these drugs, extraordinary benefits in health in many ways, 20% reduction in heart attack or stroke, and there's lots of risks. And there's lots of, it's hard to think of a subject that's more freighted with shame, stigma, anxiety than our relationship with food, with our weight, with these weight loss drugs. And what I hope I do in my book, Magic Pill, is I give people a guide so they can go in a very personalized way down the list of the risks of obesity, the list of the risks of these drugs, and try to figure out which apply to them and relatively weigh them. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer for that.
Johann Hari's book, Magic Pill, is available now wherever books are sold. You can learn more about Johann Hari and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer this week is Polly Hansen. Our lead producer is Kristen Farah. I'm Elizabeth Westfield.